Welcome to The Finance Geeks, a podcast about real financial planning. Join us as we get into the nitty-gritty, discussing everything from pensions to portfolios. If you're into numbers, strategies, and running a successful practice, this is your ultimate geeky hangout.
Welcome to Season 2, Episode 18 of the Finance Geeks podcast. Thanks for joining us. My name is Warren Shute, and I'm joined by
Paul Cleworth.
And today we're talking about how to attract your ideal clients. So, Paul, before we dive into that, what have you been up to?
I've been chatting to various other IFAs recently, one in particular that contacted me and asked me to have give me some time to him to talk about how he was going to grow his business and develop. And it was quite nice, actually, because he's only young, early 30s, and I used to think, God, that's old, isn't it? No, I'm 48 now, 31, 17 years old. I could be this guy's dad. Anyway, I was just thinking I'm still 30 in my mind, or 21 in my mind. No, this lad was up in Edinburgh working for a company employed and thinking about how to get to the next stage. So I chatted to him, and I got an email yesterday from someone who watched a couple of my PFS Power presentations, and he was asking me about disclosure of fees to clients and what we do for MiFID II requirements. And so I sent him quite a lot of stuff as well. I thought I'll help out. I want to give back to my fellow advisors.
Yeah, look at you. Big Heart Paul. That's what I'm going to call you, Big Heart Paul.
I think it comes around, believe in karma. I've been thinking about my investment proposition, trails, and how to make it more robust. So I'm taking steps to speak to Timeline. I've spoken to them a number of times in the past, but they're going to come in and see me. I've been on the phone and had a chat with Tim Hale of Albion Strategic. So I'm going to take a view as to whether to use anyone else, but it's good to know what's out there. I mean, in the same way that we'll do a review of the platforms at least annually to say what's available, and we review our proposition quarterly in-house. I'm sort of thinking, now that we're at the size we're at, do I need to have more documentation, more evidence, more graphs, more information behind the scenes to cover the what ifs? We've got an IPS, an investment proposition, and what's it called? Investment portfolio system, IPS. Should know what that means, shouldn't I?
Statement, I think.
Anyway, we've got an IPS statement, and
Kevin wrote it.
Kevin wrote it. He did, actually. It's about 39 pages. We used this pro forma, but it ultimately sort of summarizes why we use what we use, why the models are the way they are, and why we use the funds that we use. And I'm thinking, do I need more external input, for some investment analyst firm to sort of make it even better? Last thing I've been doing, I've been actually thinking about my team and my staff and how we're going to grow as a business. We've got a new staff member starting in July. And what we've put in place recently is a private medical insurance, a group PMI policy for my team, and a group PHI, so income protection policy for the team as well. And I just thought, look after your team. They will look after you.
Speak to me about that. I got some ideas for you. Do you want to talk about now or not?
We'll talk about it after. We'll talk about it after.
Yeah, okay.
Warren, what have you been up to? Business-wise, professionally.
Hey, do you know, we're a nice cruising altitude. We're steadily busy, which is nice. Client meetings in the diary. No one seems to be too stressed. We had a meeting this morning, our team huddle. We have a weekly team huddle, and everyone seems to be on top of their jobs. Everyone seems to be organized, which is how I like to operate. I think we go through phases sometime where we get a bit too busy and have to sort of claw it back. I've had an unusual number of inquiries from readers of my newspaper column, which is unusual. It's normally like one or so a month, and they're sort of fairly modest.
Is that potential business, or is that just people asking you a quick question about finance?
Well, these are three really quite sizable, like one's $1 million, one's $2.5 million, and one was like 600,000 or something. Quite sizable cases, which really surprised me because that's unusual. That's not happened before. So I don't know if they've changed something, putting it online or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, I try and speak at schools. So I go into state schools, pro bono work, probably 2, maybe 3 times a year. I've just done a money presentation. I'm really keen on making sure that financial planning becomes a recognized profession. I think we act professionally, but I think to do that, we have to do some pro bono stuff. We have to go back into the community and do things. So I'll speak in companies, village halls, schools. And I try and do it maybe 4 times a year or so. I don't charge for it. I really, really enjoy it. The kids are fantastic. They
And an
really enjoy
opportunity
it.
to plug your book.
Yeah, obviously.
Do you make them all buy your book, or do you take some of them and sign
I
them
don't
for them?
even mention. I mentioned it at the beginning that there's a credibility builder. You've got to try and catch their attention very quickly. So I say a few things to really grab their attention, and then
Yeah.
I say to them that they're in the most privileged position of everyone they know in this room, other than their peers. It's their age, and
Yeah.
it's time in the seat when it comes to investing. And you try to explain to them about compound growth, and you see their eyes light up. So, because I think a lot of the time, especially in a lot of state schools in deprived areas, these kids kind of feel inferior. They kind of feel the world's against them. And let's face it, the news and social media doesn't support them. So trying to big them up and give them some sort of hope and support, I enjoy it. It does a lot for me.
Tremendous. What's their perception of money? You said that you get questions about what car you drive and how much you're worth, and the kids will jump straight into those questions.
The
But
3 questions I pretty much always get is what car do you drive, how much you
yeah,
worth. No, well, it's not actually how much you worth. The question is, are you a millionaire?
is that what they
And
ask?
yeah. And how much do you earn? They're the 3
Right.
ones that they always want to know. And I answer how much do you want to earn? Say, what's a lot of money? And they
Yeah. Put it into
bat a figure
perspective.
back, and I say, yeah. So, you just want to make sure that they feel good. That's my outcome. I leave them
Oh,
feeling
tremendous.
inspired. And yeah, it's good. And we just wrote a couple of new blog posts, one about the new dividend disclosure rules. HMRC have come out. So small business owners got dividends. They just need to put a bit more information on their self-assessment. So feel free to go on to my blog, lexingtonwealth.co.uk, and there's an article on there if any other financial planners want to sort of borrow it and repurpose it for their own clients as well. I think it's nice for our clients to know that we're not just about the products and we're not just about lifestyle. Sometimes it can be just lifestyle. They want to know that
Yeah.
we've got our finger on the pulse of other little things. So
Yeah. You definitely. We are the same with ours. Our blog is in tandem, hashtag in tandem. It's on our website. We put our newsletter articles on there, and I try to write them so that they're topical, interesting, and they have images in there or graphs in there, and they reference certain subject matter. Because there's always something going on,
yeah,
and we try to keep it fresh. Make sure we cover the main topics of investment and risk, and then you sort of put lifestyle in there as well, and say it's quite important to remember your why and what's the point
yeah,
and what's the money for.
yeah, absolutely. And it's good fun. It's good fun. I enjoy it. Hey, should we move on to our main focal point today?
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
how to attract your ideal clients. I think that's really important about saying ideal, because it's actually quite easy just to attract clients, believe it or not. It's time in the seat, but we want to attract the right client.
We do. We were talking about this a little bit earlier, and one of the things we talked about, and it dawned on me, was it depends on where you are in your journey. If you're starting out and you're a new advisor, initially, I remember starting out Canada Life, and my boss there told me to write down all the people that I know, all my extended family, and sort of make a list. And you're thinking, right, that means I've got to call them and email them and contact them and see what I can sell them. And practice makes perfect. So even if you're setting up an ISA or a pension or a life insurance policy for a family member, if you're doing it with good intention, they become a client, and you quickly start to write transactional business, which is what I did. And over the years, you develop into and you find your ideal client, if you like. And you might love doing the transactional stuff. I like the relationship building with clients, to get to know them and their spouse and their kids, and work with them as a family unit. And I think that's what I prefer. People that have got problems to solve, that are nice clients, and we don't niche too much at all. I suppose we do like to put on our website, or we do put on our website that we work specifically or largely with successful families, because I don't like the term high net worth, with business owners, which I know quite a lot about, and with those in or approaching retirement. And the reason I do that, I actually think that still more than 50% of our business is pension planning work, retirement planning work. So you get what you ask for quite often.
Yeah, I agree with you. I hate the word niche. So many marketing people say niche, niche, niche. And I'm like, I couldn't think of anything worse than sitting in my office and every day sit in front of a GP or a vet or a teacher. I don't know, whatever it might be. It's it would just be so mundane for me. I
Yeah.
like variety. Now, the pushback that they would say is, "Oh, you can't know everything about everything." I know I can't, but I can know enough to make sure I give good advice.
Yeah.
And yeah, the niching thing for me.
No, but if you happen to work, if you know business owners really well, and you happen to be really good at helping clients structure their remuneration, pension planning for business owners, group schemes, shareholder protection, business protection, you can do more of that. You become known for doing that.
Yeah,
And when you do something a lot, you become good at it. So I think it can work.
yeah,
But you're right. If some people work with those in media or creative businesses, maybe, you can have better, more in common with them. You can more easily have the icebreaker moment with the client and sort of say, "Oh, I know this person in that industry," and then you're getting to know them more. You're right. I would find it a bit monotonous to sit in front
think
of
so.
just teachers, for example, and say, "I'm an expert in the teachers' pension scheme, and so I'll talk to you about this, and I'll help all your friends and refer me to your friends." As I say, it can work.
We use the expression family stewards and prudent delegators.
Yeah,
It's like, I think we attract people like ourselves or what we would like to be like. And
yeah,
we tend to look after families. I'm a family guy, I'm a family man. I want to grow my family's wealth and protect it for future generations.
yeah.
So therefore, I'm going to spend my time understanding that, and therefore I can share that knowledge with potential and current clients.
But that's the thing, isn't it? You've just said something really important there for the first time, in this
Yay.
whole of series two.
Well done, Warren. Well done, Warren.
That
On the back.
you would like attracts like. If you're a family guy, which you know you are, and you love life and you want people to, you practice what you preach, you're going to work better, almost certainly, with some people that are like you, that you get on with.
Yeah.
I like working with those that like to delegate their investments and their financial decisions to us to a large extent. They just say, "You get on with it. You build the trust, you build the rapport." You've got to be proactive and talk to them and help them make the decision and make sure they feel that they're in charge. But ultimately, you're working with people that of like-minded. I think that's you've got to ask yourself, what's your personality type,
Yeah.
and who do you prefer working with? Let's talk about the ways that you actually attract clients, because over your career, what do you find that, not just now, but what do you find that has worked for you to sort of attract that ideal client that you've come up with?
Without a doubt, the the only three ways I think I've ever attracted clients to my firm, and it's the only way I would probably do it today, are by referrals. And they can either be active referrals by physically asking your client for an introduction, or passive referrals, doing a great job and your clients willingly just introducing people to you. I think referrals have got to be the most powerful way of doing it because they're so personal and in control. When I started, it's interesting you said about going through and speaking to your family and things. I actually genuinely never did that. I never attracted any of my family or friends.
Do you not work with them now? You must work with friends and family now. You don't?
I do. No, I do now. But what's
All right.
interesting, even my son Ollie the other day said, "Dad, you work with all your friends." And I said, "It wasn't that. That wasn't the case
Yeah.
originally." What's happened is they've seen how things progress. They've seen how the firms, and then they've said, "Oh, would you look after this? Would you do that?" And of course, I willingly do that. But
Yeah.
for me to go after my friends and family and ask them for business, I wouldn't feel right for that. I was going to say congruent, but you're going to ping me on that. It wouldn't feel right for me. I just wouldn't do it. And I just never did at the beginning. What I did is I did seminars.
So that's another way of attracting clients, yeah. And the
Yeah.
seminar, the topic, the theme that you're going to talk about, it's got to be specific to attract a certain type of person. What sort of things did you do seminars on?
It was a money seminar. It was a week. Well, I had two. I had a day seminar, an evening seminar, an intro, then a day, then a weekend. And they were paid for seminars. We would do it on a Friday night, all day Saturday and all day Sunday. And it was on the psychology of money, creating your financial foundations, which is basically what my book's written on, The House of Wealth,
Yeah.
and investing. So it was a whole thing. It was fantastic. I used to love it. We had some great, I've still got some great clients from those days, and great friends. And it was an enjoyable thing. So I did something that I enjoyed and I was able to grow my business from it. So that's the second thing we did. And then the third thing I did was worked with centers of influence.
Solicitors and accountants and things like that.
Exactly that. Mainly accountants for me, but work very closely with accountants. I employed a very well-spoken lady, one of these mums that lunch kind of thing. She phoned, I got the Institute Chartered of Accountants England and Wales list. She phoned every single accountant in Marlborough, Swindon, and Cirencester. That's kind of like my area. And those that would booked and made appointments for me. I went in, I started working, and over the years sort of whittled it down and had stronger relationships with obviously a few of them. And then eventually built a joint venture with one of them, had a JV company.
Was that a reciprocal arrangement though? They would give you business, but you refer back to them as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And even today, as a professional, I would do that now. I want all my clients to have management accounts.
But that demonstrates to me that you've thought about it. You've thought about the people you want to work with. You've put the effort into finding someone to call all of these firms, and then you've got to go meet them and introduce yourself. So huge amounts of effort. And again, if you want to build your business, we're talking here about how to find your ideal client. You've got to decide the type of client you want to work with, the type of introducer, and that's one of the terms that we use. We've got maybe 6 to 10 introducer firms that we work with. So you'll call it center of influence. I have an introducer's arrangement with various companies, and I do get leads back from them. So some of them are will writers. We've got there's a chap who does specialist overseas mortgages. Some of the experts in defined benefit pension transfers. There's a chap that I refer to who's a specialist in private medical insurance. And we're building our reputation and building our brand. I think you become known over time for the go-to person, who's trustworthy, who's a decent financial planner who will listen to you as the client. And it takes time. All of that takes time. Knocking on doors, back in the day when cold calling was sort of allowed, and going to networking groups, which I did a lot of, you're sort of presenting to a lot of people and explaining what you do, and you're just casting your net far and wide. It wasn't very specific in the first instance. Now I would say that I work best with successful families because I like working with husband and wife for sure. It's got to be a couple. I'd say most of our clients are couples. Those that generally earn high incomes, professionals, whatever you mean that to be. I do enjoy working with business owners because I'm one myself. And I think that, as I say, working with clients that are transitioning from working to not working, that's what I prefer doing as well.
Okay, so you've identified who you like working with. I think that's probably then step one. Then
who I can relate to most. Because of my age and my experience working with those, it just becomes across, I think, in the branding, the presentations that we have, the storyboards that we use, they're more attuned to that type of a client.
So how do you attract them?
Well, it's interesting because you look back, and my company Tandem has been going now just over 9 years. And we've tripled the level of assets, just more than tripled in that 9 years of period, from 44 million to about 155 million of assets. And we've only attracted another, say, 40 client families in that period of time. It's gone from about 175 to about 215. And we've done it almost 95% plus through word of mouth, through referral. So yes, I think that I would, when I felt that business was low and I didn't have enough of a pipeline, I would ask some of my clients, who do you know who? And you use that line, who do you know who? And I might say to them, who do you know are other clients, other friends of yours, similar to yourself, your sort of caliber, try and build them up a bit, have similar level of assets, and require what it is that we do.
It's interesting when you talk about the asking referrals. I always sort of say to people, try and be as specific as you can, because when you ask someone a question, if they're not trained to give referrals, and most people aren't, it kind of just sends them off into a frenzy. They're like, I don't know. They kind of always freeze. So I would always ask, tell me about John and Jenny, your executors in your will. What are they like? How do you know them? So, do you think they would benefit from the kind of work that we've done? Would you mind introducing us? Maybe just send a round robin email to copy us in and I can pick it up. Yeah. Or, tell me about your business partner. What's his situation or her situation? What do they do? And when you go, when you're more specific, I believe, it's my belief, and listeners try out the different methods and stuff, the client can relate to that one person.
Definitely.
I remember I grew up near Swindon, and Allied Dunbar was here, and it was always these stories of the Allied Dunbar salesman would take a bottle of champagne into the meeting with them and do the business, and the client would say, well, "What's the champagne for down the bottom?" Say, "Well, that's yours when you give me 10 names and referrals so I can go and speak to next." And you think, "Oh my god, I'd so cringe." But it worked for him. But what I would say is, if you just ask specifically for a name, I think I think it's a nice way of getting introduced to their friends and family.
Well, people generally relate to other people like them, So I've got a couple of
Yeah.
clients of mine that are on a local football team. They're the ideal client for me. They've referred me to a couple of their friends. Um, Sometimes they might work together. So I've got one client who works for a newspaper company, and he's referred me to about three or four of his colleagues. He wants them to have the same experience that he got. He wants to look good to them. He wants me to look after them, and yes, it's they are their ideal type of client. They're 50 plus. They've got assets. They want a full review.
I think this is important to note as well. I think that clients generally want to help you and want to help you succeed, and they look good by referring people to you. Now, at our firm, I will speak to anyone that gets introduced to us. So if I get an introduction from my newspaper column, I get an introduction from my clients or off the website, I'll always spend 5 minutes or so and then point them in the right direction. And some people could say, well, that's a waste of your time, Warren, because you could be speaking to, £10,000 ISA clients, this, that, and the other. I don't
Yeah.
know. I just kind of want them to think of me as that trusted resource, information source. They can just go there, introduce someone.
Yeah.
Um,
You don't want to get a bad reputation, and
yeah,
you don't
true.
want to sort of, I suppose, not be helpful. It changes your mindset and your character very, very easily if you're curt with people and just email them back very short and curt saying, "Oh, you're not our ideal client." And you talk about reputation, hugely, hugely important. I feel that my brand, my reputation is well, certainly it should be for everyone is paramount. And you can improve that reputation not only by doing a great job for your existing clients and making them look good and giving them the service you've given others, and making sure you're always looking out for them and doing the best, your best job. You can also build your social proof online by building your Google reviews, your vouch for reviews, if you use unbiased. These are just tools that you can use. And I just think there's no one way of doing it, because the question, you go to meet other clients, other advisors at conferences and seminars, and it always used to come up. I think a lot of advisors ask each other this question, the universal question in our profession. How do you find new clients? Where does your business come from?
Do you think they are that?
Definitely, I think so. Yeah,
Anyone who's been in the seat for a period of time in our profession is busy. They should be busy. It's the newbies, the new guys on the block. That we were all new guys on the block. How do they get traction and how do they
yeah,
get started?
yeah, yeah.
I think really that's the ones that need the sort of support and the help. And I think when you said about the Google reviews and online reviews, stuff like that, I think that is important because it gives the potential client, the prospect, a picture of what you're about.
Definitely.
Okay, you've got to be congruent across all areas of your life. It's your personal life, your professional life.
Yeah.
It's what are
What
you
will they
putting
find
out
when
there?
they look you up? When they put your
Yeah,
name into Google or
yeah,
LinkedIn or whatever? What will they see? And
yeah, absolutely.
your reputation in that regard is super important. I do agree with you. It's going to be the younger client who's going to ask that, who's still building their book of business. But you get to a
Yeah,
point where if you've been around a long time, you're working with lots of existing clients, you've got to have that discussion with your team and with yourself. Well, what's next? How am I going to build to the next level?
if you are new in this game, I promise you, it's not hard to be successful. You say please, you say thank you, you do what you say you're going to do. Okay,
Yeah.
and when you do that, clients willingly refer you. And then it's a case of, okay, how do I now scale and put the systems and the processes in place to make sure my firm can meet these demands?
You've got to be, you talk about being congruent all the time. You've got to be fair and reasonable and stick to your guns and treat customers fairly. There are firms out there still that will charge different fees to different clients. Some they'll charge 3%, some 1% initial.
Really?
I've spoken to a couple of them. It's all like get away with what you can.
Look, if you're doing that and you're listening, turn the podcast off. Go and sort your charging structure out, because you
Completely.
can't do that.
But that's what I mean. You've got to give that same. If you've decided to take on a client, regardless of the assets that they've got, you've got to do your best job for them and realize it's their money. Treat them as if you would they're your brother, your mother, your best friend. Do the job properly. And I agree with you. Saying please and thank you and always being courteous, and it goes a long, long way. It's not to be underestimated as to how important it is.
Paul Etheridge had an expression that used to talk to us about a lot, is don't ever do anything that you wouldn't want your mother to read on the front page of a national newspaper.
Yeah.
And when you take every decision you make and you run it past that filter, it kind of thinks, yeah, you're right. I don't want mum to read about me on the front page of the paper doing whatever.
If you treat your clients like gold and you're constantly delivering top tier advice consistently, and you're always acting in their best interest, even when there's nothing in it for you, and you're being generous with your time and your knowledge, that's when you start to get that improved reputation, when you start to get referrals. I think that it's putting good karma out there. But on the flip side, one of the things we touched on there about replying to inquiries and referrals and just doing your job is you still got to be mindful of your time. You shouldn't, if you want to be successful and efficient, give an hour to someone on the phone. Perhaps if 10 minutes will be sufficient to point them in the right direction, and be willing to say no. If it's not a good fit between you and that prospect, that referral, you've got to be willing to say, actually, I don't think there's a good fit between us. I would recommend perhaps you go to Vanguard Investor or do it yourself.
And on that about the 10 minutes, I completely agree with you. Some people say, well, how do you do that? Well, you send a diary invite for a 10-minute slot. It's quite simple.
Yes.
It's like when they receive that through and you're booked in from 4 till 4:10 on a Thursday afternoon, they're expecting 10 minutes of your time. They're not expecting an hour. Managing your time is a process and a system. You just got to learn it and actually implement it. So, okay,
definitely.
You were starting afresh today.
Yeah.
How would you get traction? How would you start? How would you get new clients? How would you attract you'd first define your ideal client. So we've covered that. So you've got to who you want to work with and how you going to attract them.
So I think it's you've got to try different avenues, to be honest. You can't necessarily just go down one avenue and say, I will create an amazing website and some literature and branding, and I'll have a subscription to Unbiased and Vouch For, and I'll just wait for the leads to come in. I do think you've got to get out there. If you and ask yourself, what do you like doing? Do you like going into the city? Are you part of a club yourself, a football club or a rugby club or a cricket club? Maybe if you play golf, yes, golf club. Maybe if you go to your golf club, you could talk to people. You've got to find something in common with other people. When I started out, I can only look back at what I did. I think it's easier when you're in the position when you've got a number of clients you're looking after and things going well. It's easier than say, this is exactly what you should do. It's times change. Prior to, 20 years ago, I remember it must have been 5 years, I was part of BRE, Business Referral Exchange, getting up at 5:36 in the morning, going to the meeting 7 till 8:30, 30 odd people standing up doing 1 minute presentations and you passing your business cards around. To be honest, that worked for me to an extent where I got certain clients from it, largely when I was doing mortgages and protection. But
did you get fat eating all the breakfast?
Well, I was probably overweight at one point in my previous years. I'm still not ideal weight now. Why did we get onto that? But in terms of what I would do is I would build that brand. I would build that reputation. I think what's super important to me personally is that all my brand is joined up. The presentations, the email signature, the letterheads, the wording.
I asked the question, how would you attract the clients today? I don't know what you're doing. I'm a newbie. I'm listening to this podcast. What would you do today? Give them something to take away.
I would. It's just about putting the time in. Where do clients come from? You go meet people.
I'll ask the question. If you're a newbie, okay, and you got 0 clients, you've got to do what Paul said. You've got to make sure you've got some kind of image, some brand, so a website and some blog posts going up there.
Yeah.
That should take you a week or so. Then you need to start contacting sensible influencers and start giving your proposition and telling them how you can add value so they can start referring people to you.
Yeah.
Just get traction. More creates more. You just have to start seeing people. You could then maybe do some presentations, some seminars, or get onto podcasts and start talking to things. So if you can get yourself onto a podcast or get yourself onto into a group of some sort, so you can start speaking to people about what you do, that's going to start traction. You're going to start learning what you can do and what you can't do. But I think it's really action. I think people have to start somewhere and start doing things.
It's not as if you've got unlimited choices when you're younger, unless you've got a considerable capital balance in the bank. For you to just only source your ideal client, you end up taking what business there is initially. You write transactional work. You take on the sort of clients that perhaps you are not ideal in terms of the level of assets and the work involved and the potential remuneration, and you have to go through those issues and build through it to define what type of business and what type of client you want to work with. I don't. It's easy to say, right? I'll start off. I'll write on a piece of paper. I want to work with those that earn 6 figures plus, or that have £500,000 of investments, or that are just doctors, for example, and I'll just go to see them. It's difficult to niche and to be very specific in the beginning. I think it's about calling, about busy, about booking. It's a classic sales thing. It's knocking on doors or making calls and having meetings. And the more meetings you have, yeah. And then you ask the question, who do you know who? And as you say, you be specific and you ask the questions that you were saying before about, tell me about, it's a leading question. The words that we use there are super important. Tell me about your friends. Tell me about this person. Tell me about your executors of your will or your business partner. Mega important.
Yeah, no. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think also there are hundreds, I'm going to say thousands, let's not exaggerate, hundreds of older financial planners who are looking for someone to help them look after their clients. So, we're talking about you starting from scratch, from zero. There might be some kind of relationship that you could do. One of my coaching clients acquired for a very, very, very modest sum, like less than or about one-time revenue or something, a guy who's retiring his clients. And they kind of handed over a period of a few months and stuff like that. And he's now got himself traction. He's got his group of clients he can run with. And then all you need is a few clients, because you can then say, tell me about your executors, you will. Do you think they'll benefit from the type of service we're doing? But you've got to know what type of client you want to work with. And I think you've got to have a service that you deliver that's going to knock their socks off.
I do believe, though, in the long game mentality. Building trust takes time. You've got to keep showing up. You've got to be consistent in your message and your delivery. And, you've got to be authentic at what you do. You've got to be great at what you do. You've got to be walking the walk, as you say, and being congruent. It's hugely important. And I think that the clients that you work with, they see this over time and they realize that you're not just a flash in the pan. You're not trying to just flog them something and then never see them again. I never talk to them again. And as I say, the reputation builds over time. I like to say that we specialize in working with clients with lots of problems to solve, that want to delegate their investments to us, that they want to simplify their lives. They want to be sort of free from the woes of money. And I like keeping it simple.
People like the same thing. And this is why McDonald's sells more burgers than anyone else in the world. It's not because they sell the best burger, okay, but you know what you're going to get when you go to McDonald's. And I think what Paul Pace is saying is, your reputation will be built on what you do. And if you're doing different things all the time, bringing out great new ideas all the time, people are going to be nervous of that. They like consistency. They like reassurance.
But people buy people, don't they? They do. They size you up very quickly. And, if you're super likable like myself, I'm not sure about you, Warren, but you get referred because of it. I want to make sure that we are busy, but at the same time, I don't want to be, so busy that I've got no time for existing clients. And getting that balance right is just very difficult, to be honest. I think that for me, the central key point to all of this that we're discussing here is about finding your ideal client. You attract them by being the kind of advisor that they're lucky to find. You've got to be consistent in what you say and what you do. Get that balance right all the time. and you build your business slowly. Because the problem with new advisors is they can take on lots of clients. If they're a financial planner, they get to a point where they've got 50 or 100, and then they realize, oh, I've got to service these clients. And if it's your own business and you've got to service these clients, you end up either disengaging with them or firing them or, mistreating them or not calling them because you're going, oh, they're hardware, they're not ideal, So
Oh,
you don't want to take on too many of the wrong type of clients or those that phone you every 5 minutes when markets fall 1%.
Don't take any of them on.
With what I said before, your favorite, Zig Ziglar, said, if people like you, they'll listen to you. But if they trust you, they'll do business with you. You got to build the trust.
I like that. I've not heard that one. Yeah, I like that one. It's I think we've covered that. I think we've done a really good job.
It's a very difficult question to answer, though, isn't it? The ideal client, because it's subjective.
It's attracting an ideal client. So we've said define what your ideal client is, and then you attract it by doing all these different things. And we're saying referrals is definitely up there. Getting yourself out there, seeing people, asking the question.
And you have to get in the minds of that type of client. If you want to work with a certain type of client, you've got to be thinking, what do they think about? What can I be showing them and presenting to them? What questions can I ask them? And then how can I actively find more of that same type of client? And as you said, it builds from there, whether it's centers of influence or advertising or buying in leads or whatever. I would dissuade people from cold calling or buying in leads or buying businesses. You end up getting very, very challenging circumstances with clients. Building it through referral is the ideal because you're going to get like-minded clients and your message is going to be much more consistent.
Cool. Okay. Should we move on to Q&A?
Yes. Have you got any at all for me, or should I, typical fashion, go first?
Why don't you do a couple? Because we've, you jump in.
Okay. So, renowned author and business speaker Bob Berg said, all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. So you've got to build that trust with people. What else? Author of The Purple Cow and Tribes, Seth Godin, said, the secret of marketing success is no secret at all. Word of mouth is all that matters. And I'm going to give you one final one from Jeff Bezos. I think you know who he is. He said, if you build a great experience, customers tell each other about that. Word of mouth is very powerful.
Yeah.
So
I agree
that experience is everything, isn't it? From how you greet the clients when they come in, how you do your presentations, the way that you present, the documents that you give them, the whole shebang.
Yes, how you make them feel, isn't it? People don't care.
Exactly.
What you know. They care what you make them feel. Something along those lines.
They do. That's it. Very good.
Brilliant. Okay, so that's a wrap for today. Thank you for tuning in to the Finance Geeks. It's been wonderful speaking to you. We have one more session next week, and then we're breaking for summer. Then we'll be back after a few more weeks. But thanks for tuning in. That's bye from me.
Yeah, goodbye. Have a lovely evening and enjoy the sun.
Thanks for tuning in to the Finance Geeks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. Drop your comments and questions on YouTube, and be sure to follow us on social media. Join us next time for more insights to boost your financial planning game.